Good afternoon, dear colleagues. This is the final panel discussion in the Ukraine Crisis Media Center and anti-debates projects. We will be talking about the Democratic Initiative Survey. In the scope of debates, the question is interested for 40% of Ukrainians. How to overcome corruption in Ukraine? Our speakers are Vitaliy Shabunin, head of the board, Center for Anti-Corruption Action, Mykhailo Zhernakov, coordinator of Public Integrity Council, Mykhailo Koriukalov, analyst of USAID project, the support to anti-corruption champion institutions program in Ukraine. The main question is how to overcome corruption in Ukraine, what Ukrainian president can do, and what is rational and logical to expect from him. Not looking onto the personalities, we would like to give the floor to Vitaliy Shabunin. What is our agenda? You have enough time. There are 23 profile NGOs who united as to the first round of elections, and they propose to all candidates, presidential candidates, this program consists of 4 points. The candidates are expected to answer the 4 questions, because this is important for their future performance. The first is the reloading of the staff of National Anti-Corruption Prevention Prosecution Office. Now this body is used to remove those who are undesirable staff of other institutions. So NAPC, we want the candidates, presidential candidates are expected to support our NGOs in this intention to reload the staff on NAPC. The next is question is SAPO. Every time when they work on cases, there were 18 cases which were lost, and we would even say sold, and even the key expert in this case is persecuted now. So the president can either adopt a law. This is the first approach possible. The second possible approach, the incumbent president can help the prosecutor general to sign for Mr. Kholodnitsky the suspicion notice. We want the clear positions from the candidates on renewal of confidence to the prosecutor's office. So this is the third issue is security service. We want the standards of NATO not to be in the competence of the security service of Ukraine. This is out of its competence. 7 more the proportion is 7-1 among the staff. We should just insist on firing Mr. Pavlo Demchina We have been asking for this for 1.5 years. The case against him is at the final stage. He is a figure in the case on briberies. So his incomes are alleged to be illegal. We want the political elites to be also punished, so that they stop destroying the infrastructure in Ukraine. Both candidates, Poroshenko and Zelensky, signed this our petition with our 4 points. So we want the candidates to be dedicated to implementing these 4 requirements of 23 NGOs, and also other issues could be added. The key story is the review of organization and operation of the collegium of qualification commissions of judges, because they are incapable of electing normal staff. They elect corrupt officials to their composition and to the composition of other bodies as being in qualification commission. A newly elected qualification commission should be provided the opportunity to review the results of this previous commission decisions. So this is a list of questions we want the new president to address, either himself using his powers or by influence on the parliament in his faction via his MPs. And it would be logical to hear from the candidates their stance about 2 staff positions, such as General Prosecutor and Head of Anti-Corruption Prosecution Office. So General Prosecutor and the Head of Security Service of Ukraine. We want to hear the positions of the candidates. Mr. Kanevskyi, could you tell us more about your project? The same question, what the president can do and what he can't do. Good afternoon. We support the anti-corruption procedure, the anti-corruption agenda, which Mr. Vitaliy Shabunin already voiced out. Corruption is very well seen in Ukroboronprom story. 1 year ago, on March 15, the president issued an act seeking to investigate Ukroboronprom activities, and as of today, the last day which was set by the president for scrutiny, no audit had been conducted. And now we even know that it was too short term for such a scrutiny. So the lack of political will to eliminate the year-long problems in the defense industry. What can be done to this? How to address it? Bukin is the director of Ukroboronprom. He is a figure who was mentioned as the one who has not paid to Mr. Poroshenko. And he is still acting in his position. And he is even not prevented from implementing his duty. He can be just at least be out of this investigation. Instead, he is instructed to support the investigation into his own, headed by him, enterprise. There are 3 cases in which he is a figure. These cases were started in 2017 when Ukroboronprom bought special cars, Volkswagen cars, for bodyguards, and Ukrospets experts conducted embezzlement of governmental funds. The second case is about Ukrospets expert. It was covered in the Spec Techno expert bought in Czech Republic the infantry, armored infantry vehicles. For 2 years this case have been investigated, and the Ukrospets Techno expert bought services also from an offshore company on transfer of goods by Ukraine to other countries, and over 2,000 million were paid for this middleman services, and the government now believes that these 2 millions were paid for nothing, because the services have not been provided. This was just the pretext to siphon this 2 million out of Ukrainian budget. So such enterprises, the president should either fire the directors of such enterprises. We cannot speak about international audits when people who are figures in criminal investigations, they continue their career development. As concerned Ukroboronprom concern, hundreds of cases have been initiated against this company. I remember that in 2017, Anatoly Matyos, the general military prosecutor, provided information to the Parliamentary Anti-Corruption Committee that his body had over 700 cases against the defense industry entities. If someone heard this, that at the interim investigation committee, Mr. Sitnik, Lutsenko, Kholodnitsky, they were invited, but Matyos was not invited for questioning. Nobody tried to understand what was the cause of so many cases. Matyos was out of attention. His agency was the main before 2014 who investigated the cases, and in dozens of cases the military prosecutor's office continued to be the procedural management institution. But where is the military prosecutor in such cases? So at the Security Council, the military prosecutor should be present and he should report why the cases have not been investigated and finalized respectively. So far, political forces try not to address the cases to finalize them, but to use them. For example, some just to blame and find some person who would be named guilty, like Mr. Sitnik. Ukroboronprom is the largest source of corruption. In 2017, the Audit Service of Ukraine found that the concern consisting of 125 state-owned plants. Most of them are bankrupt, they do not operate, and they do not produce military machinery, and it was recommended to sell them, but they are not sold. They have not been tried to let for privatization because the family members of Ukroboronprom, they had these companies and they use the lands or just use the facilities and equipment for their own personal gain. Criminal cases have been initiated, but these directors, they have enough money to buy any investigator or any prosecutor. So they are not fired. These directors of these inefficient enterprises, which are state-owned and do not operate appropriately, do not operate according to their functions. So the problem of corruption in defense industry remain in place, and as all procurements, they are secret in defense industry because nobody has lifted this ban. No has disclosed information. And even when we are talking now, these guys, they could create new companies. They can be creating them now, new umbrella companies, and after 3 or 4 years, we will see the cases initiated against them. So I think that the new president, having specific powers in the national security sphere, he should eliminate the sources of corruption and the personalities who manages these enterprises, and also to find out why the law enforcement bodies work inefficiently. Mr. Grikala, I have the following question to you. What understanding the population of Ukraine have, what are population's expectations, how corruption could be overcome in Ukraine? Thank you. We also conducted an investigation, quite a multifaceted one, comprehensive investigation. We used focus groups by various divided by various categories of population. We asked how people perceive corruption, and why they can become corrupt, or they do not want to support corrupt actions. Why? And my main thesis is that political thesis, which was said by the experts today, by our two experts and other ones, and there is not only political corruption, but also everyday corruption. So this everyday corruption is not perceived as a corruption by our population. 93% of people think that the problem of corruption is either important or very important, but they think about political corruption. When they are asked about everyday grassroots corruption, it is understood that this kind of corruption is not perceived as corruption by them. This is corruption, for example, between me and some utilities person who comes to repair my amenities, or me and the school director, me and the doctor I visit. So people are quite largely involved in this kind of everyday corrupt actions. How to overcome corruption? This was the question in our survey, and we offered 10 versions of answers. One of the answers was to increase the punishment. 80% of people think that stricter punishments will help. Also, 10% think that the
cancel immunity.
Cancellation of MPs immunity will also help to overcome corruption. There were also versions of answers like to change rules of the game, to improve public awareness, to simplify regulation, to deregulate. But people do not perceive these methods as more efficient ones. We will not talk today why, but people really want punishment and cancellation of immunity of MPs. And President, as a leader of his team, he can become the example to follow. Then the civil servants will, looking at him, behave relevantly. And of course, we want more punishments, and the president can improve confidence in him. Next questions, please.
Next question. All of you said that there are decisions that can be made quickly after elections that are ready to be used. And what issues cannot be resolved quickly? People may expect that it can be done quickly, that someone will come and do it quickly, but what are the issues that cannot be so quickly resolved? The same order, Vitaliy, please. I would like to cite the president. Reforms are made quickly or they are not done at all. So this is a citation from his speech when he was elected last time. It is more easy to fight political corruption than petty corruption. So there should be an avoidability of punishment in case of big corruption. Otherwise, we won't succeed. But we should fight petty corruption and administrative corruption as well. But it cannot be resolved through punishment. We cannot jail doctors. It's impossible. The only way how to overcome this corruption in education, healthcare, is to provide systemic reforms, reforms that go on for years. So 5 years, it is quickly, and maybe we would like to do it in less than 50 years. So what can the president do? So he may make quick steps, and he should remove the problem faced by the heads of prosecutors' offices. So those cases of NABU, they shouldn't stop in SAPO. They should go to anti-corruption court. There are cases, and we hope that this court will be established, and maybe society may see that these people are persecuted, and the parliament would get the majority, and it is needed for systemic reforms. Otherwise, it would be impossible to overcome petty corruption as well. We want to have separate stories to overcome political corruption and petty corruption. Different instruments should be used for this. But first, the president should show the results in fighting political corruption. So if Zelensky wins, he doesn't have many spheres before parliamentary elections where he can show results. This infrastructure of fighting political corruption is maybe the only sphere where he can quickly succeed. So this is the agenda. I would like to join to the words of Vitaliy. I would like to add, in each town, we do not feel it in Kiev actually, but in small towns there is a link in the west and in the east of Ukraine. People really are tired of this link, that in one zone there can be city head, prosecutor, chief police officer, and the judge. They can be all in one zona. And no matter what revolutions and power we have, this link is stable. So this is the necessity to carry out this reform of local level, to break these illegal groups. And anti-corruption system should work, and NABU, SAPO, anti-corruption courts, they should work properly as a team in, for example, Trukhanov case, any big case. So if they had good cooperation, and if SAPO and anti-corruption court worked properly, so we would face a different situation at local level. So we should launch one more reform, and there should be reform of Prosecutor's General Office. We should clear Prosecutor's Office from those people who cannot tell where the money comes from, and some people just stayed on their positions and avoided lustration. So we should find these people and remove them. We should also cleanse police, because this reform only concerned patrol police, and this reform didn't move forward. When we speak about corruption, citizens of Ukraine mainly think about detectives of bureaus, but we have also the Department of Economic Protection, and they should fight corruption at the local level. But have you ever heard about the activity of this department? No, they do not have this activity, and they have a powerful department, and it is present in all the regions of Ukraine, and no one knows about the activity. Security Service of Ukraine, also at the local level, it is present, what they do actually there. They cooperate with business, they take money from business, they interfere in the economic activity at the local level, and this should be stopped. And also courts. The system of courts was not reformed, and we should start it anew. And we should do it in such a way that the judge, whether he is in a small or big city, he should feel that he is a judge, he should be fair, he should be trusted. Now, if we look what is done at the local level and what judges take decisions, they just legalize some operations, some transfers of illegal groups that are in the mayor's offices, and we should break this circle. And I believe that if the team of the new president to be able to fight this monster that is in each city, then this problem of petty corruption, it will be resolved quickly, because people will see that their mayor, who has a salary of 15,000 hryvnias, he doesn't go to work on a Range Rover, or that the judge who has a salary of 30,000, he doesn't have a three-storied house, but live just in the house and in some flat. So people should understand who these people are. So going back to the question about the long-term steps, the first step, if we are speaking about long-term prospect, we should believe that corruption is not a problem, it is a symptom of the problem, of inefficiency. Not only inefficiency, it's a symptom of this illegal links and symptom of inefficiency of anti-corruption bodies. So we should relaunch reform, and we should find the roots, the main reasons in order to succeed in this reform. Maybe there will be euphoria, but the results will be the same if we won't fight the roots, because high temperature is the symptom. It's not the illness. So if you have 37.2, you go to the doctor, and the doctor says you have some problem with your health, you have protrusion, for example, and you need systemic long treatment. It cannot be done quickly. It's not like just relaunch some system. You should do it daily. You should swim, you should have some medicines, you should remember, for example, about your back that is hurting. Or, for example, if your child falls ill, often you go to a doctor, and the doctor says that you should air the room, you should clean the dust, you should improve the health of the child, and in order to make your child more healthy, you should do some simple daily steps in order to improve health of your child, and the doctor cannot do it for you. So corruption, if we speak about petty level, this is the symptom that the state services are provided inefficiently. And I, as a citizen, as a consumer, I do not feel that I get the services. That's why I go through corruption. So if I get, for example, a passport or some other document, if I should stay in the queue to get a passport, so I go to some intermediary, I pay, and I understand that my passport is more important for me than being honest. If I want to have a place in the kindergarten for my child, I know how to do it. And for me, to place my child in the kindergarten is more important, for example. But I'm not speaking about myself, I'm speaking about our focus group. So we had 116 people interviewed, and only 15 people, 15% of people, they didn't give any bribes in their life. Others, they provide these bribes. And people just said this during our focus groups meetings. So you see the maybe 20–30% of people say they go fair way. So, for example, they do not want to have comfort. They will go along this way and won't give bribes. But this petty corruption is the symptom of inefficiency of provision of service by the state, and how people interact with power or with schools, hospitals, and other state institutions. If we're speaking about corruption at the political level, this is the symptom of more complex things. This is inefficiency of the power, but also this is the symptom of our own inefficiency. And the president theoretically may create a system of check and balances, not among only the parliament, government, and president, but also including civil society, speaking broadly, not only a civil society, but the whole public. And in the cities, they know, for example, that 4 men, they are in the sauna and they just negotiate their own issues. Of course, they have limited opportunities to do something, but the public, they are not in the system of check and balances now. And the state never provided an opportunity to the public to be more active, and this is the function of the state, to make conditions for the public to be active, that civil society be active, and to make them a part of the system of check and balances. And the president, he has his role in this. As a leader of the political team, he will lead, and also, if we are speaking about long-term process, we should recognize that corruption is the symptom, and we should understand what stands behind it, and we should resolve those problems. So we have 2 questions from our audience. Who is responsible, except the president, for fighting corruption at the political level, and who potentially may delay this fight? In Ukraine, we have such an infrastructure. If we are speaking about punishment for corruption, first, the Anti-Corruption Bureau investigates. Procedural supervision is by Anti-Corruption Prosecutor's Office. Now, Anti-Corruption Court hear the case. This is the story of punishment. And impediments can be made by General Prosecutor's Office. This is from outside. Prosecutors General, SBU, National Police, experts, deputies, and other courts, numerous different players. But if these 3 institutions are working, they are able to work properly. And about parliamentarians, how they may kill this efficiency of infrastructure. For example, amendments of Lazavy that prevented the investigation of corruption cases. Now, anti-corruption courts try to spread this to previous cases. Or, for example, there may be also, the Court of Appeal also may create impediments in the process. It is difficult to build efficient institutions in an efficient country. So NABU works, and Anti-Corruption Prosecutor's Office and the Anti-Corruption Courts, they are working, and there is state monopoly on expertise, so you may be a fair detective or fair prosecutor, but you may not succeed. expert may provide opinion that there are no losses, for example, in the case, and this case won't be properly investigated and sent to court. So political elites, they fight against this fight. And this is also a struggle in the framework of the between the institutions. Anti-monopoly committee, for example. So this fight is inefficient without anti-monopoly committee. Even if in the committee there are fair people, their work is more difficult because they are opposed by the system. So also there is electoral system and control of media sphere and anti-monopoly committee and other organizations. Also there was an attempt to create a conflict among the experts. What is important, to punish corruption or to prevent corruption through deregulation? Both are important. This is always a complex of measures. We should do everything, and a lot of time is spent for some senseless discussions. People should work in a team to fight political corruption, and if you work in a sphere of punishment, so punish them. If you you are in the sphere of deregulation, you should deregulate. If you are in anti-monopoly committee, you should find monopolies. So you should do your work at your place. I would like to speak about the government separately, about the sources of corruption. If you look at the statistics of the cases of Anti-Corruption Bureau, the pre-trial investigation body that specializes in corruption, the source of corruption are state enterprises that sell products for decreased prices. They sell through shell companies, and there are Mandrtenenko and other players, and they sell gas at lower prices, like Anishchenko and so on and so forth. We have 3,000 state-owned enterprises in Ukraine, and no one tries to solve this problem. No one, I mean the government of Ukraine. There was a Azarov government. No one thought about the solution. Then Yatsenyuk government, and they spoke a lot about privatization, but privatization didn't happen. The same about the government of Groisman. They speak a lot about privatization, but privatization is on hold, and we had 3,000, and the 3,000 remained. So we have the enterprise for breeding of horses. They have a lot of lands. What they do? They do not breed these horses, but they cannot manage these lands, but some private businesses are in these lands, and these businesses are not registered. These are some raiders who got this land, they seized it, and the government continues to pretend that nothing is happening, and we need this enterprise for breeding horses. And next one is the customs office. Illegal power, previous power, or democratic power. No matter what power is, there are the chains of counterfeit products that go through these customs offices, and these are millions and billions and of shadow money, and then journalists, prosecutors, activists are bought for this money. And the new government also does not contribute to block these channels, and also tax schemes. Some preference subsidies they remain, as journalist investigations and analytics show. These subsidies go to Kasyuk, and also Akhmetov firms get benefits, and this problem continues, and also the government pretends that nothing happens, but it does. And if we block these schemes, the field for corruption will be narrowed. Also, land market, and also the Ministry of Defense has a colossal amount of land. According to State Audit Service, the raiders took 52,000 hectares of land from the Ministry of Defense, and these lands are not managed properly. So the question remains open for the government. Agrarian Academy of Sciences, they also have huge lands, and the academicians and their families earn from these lands. No one tries to privatize this land. It remains state land, but it is not managed properly. Also, there are shares and reserve shares within oblast and state administrations, and the heads of these administrations, they earn from this lands, and the families of obl state administrations and regional administrations, they earn from this land. So these are the examples, and the government should deal with this problem. I'm not speaking about fighting corruption. They should remove the sources of corruption. And if they fight it efficiently, we will see just another country. So deregulation is also fighting corruption and narrowing the field for corruption. So it's not about how to fight corruption. We should say how to fight it and how to narrow this field for corruption, and how to fight those who prevent us from fighting corruption. So the government, it should provide privatization and to manage properly, but they do not do this, and we understand why they do not do it, and they won't do it, evidently. So how can we narrow this field for corruption if no one wants it among those who take decisions? What scheme can be closed in order not to infringe into someone's interests? Some schemes were optimized concerning passports, for example. You can get them through electronic means, and you pay, for example, through the account, and you hope that this money will go to the state or to the city, to someone closer to you. So how can we do this? How can we narrow this field of corruption? So how can we do it, and how we can involve others into this fight? How to show to people that this is about them? And our idea in the project, based on this research, maybe this is a little bit naive when we are speaking about SAPO and APSC, NABO, and other bodies, but we should start at schools. When I bring money to the school, I do not control where this money goes to. Then I read the news and I understand how so I understand that some of this money may be stolen. So someone steals from me, and I just do not care about it. So this is a matter of police, and I do not provide this information to police. I give a lot of money, but we do not have repairs. The materials are not bought, but, for example, the principal of the school buys a new car, So people should understand that their money is stolen. Political corruption also steals from all of us. But it is more difficult. It goes through the budget, through bribes, through procurements. And when I give money to someone who steals, so I give money to a principal of the school, and I know that he will steal a part of this money. So we should find examples. For example, in some schools, they provide transparent reporting on the use of the money. We should spread the story. People should feel that they can make changes in their community. So, for example, active parents may get united and to establish this verification. And it is more difficult to steal if there is verification, and simple people in such a situation may influence. But this works in the sphere of petty corruption, and people start to control not only the budget of the school, but also the budget of the region and the budget of the whole country. Thank you. Dear audience, do you have questions to our experts?
Leonid Khomyakov, system analyst. I have a question to Mr. Vitaliy. Indeed, the situation is quite grave in anti-corruption sphere. And how would you assess the chances that the corruption would be overcome, at least not completely, but contained to some low level? With which we can live and which we can accept? Or one of my friends, a lady, she said, she's a lawyer, and she said that the corruption, whether it could be eliminated, it could be eliminated when people change. There are cats and there are pigs in nature, but cats should not be taught to behave, to be neat, because they are neat, and pigs, they remain unneat anyway. So when a politician of national scope said that you stop giving bribes and everything would change, and tomorrow when people stop giving bribes to road traffic inspectors, then corruption would be overcome. This means that someone tried to transfer all responsibility on voters. How voters can overcome corruption in courts? There is no way. It is impossible on the side of voter. If the Qualification Commission does not do this, this is the responsibility of MPs who should adopt relevant laws and hire new staff of the Qualification Commission. The same concerns other issues such as national electricity regulator is in charge of electricity industry issues, and they can shape the rules of the game in the electricity industry. The same concerns the government. They can either change the rules of the game. What voters can do? They can elect adequate politicians to the polls. The process is long. We, as a think tank, we do not conduct public awareness campaigns. We conduct advocacy campaigns. We motivate the power, the authorities to implement their functions, to do their job. an average family in Ukraine where two persons work, they pay $4,000 annually to the state. This is an average family living not in the capital, and if for 4,000 a year they do not have even judicial system, then the responsibility for this is on the government, on the authorities. The people cannot overcome corruption without fair and efficient politicians, because these are their powers. It is hard to elect efficient and fair politicians. It is hard to understand who is the first, the hen or the egg. Are there any other questions? You're welcome, please. My name is Alexander Timoshenko. I am a head of NGO Maidan and a victim in 5 cases concerning Maidan. I have a question, specific question. We are desperate about the results which we got for 5 years. I visited 250 meetings concerning criminal proceedings on Berkut commanders, and always either lawyers are changed or judges are changed, and the lawyers find some pretexts from the law to avoid, to help their defended persons to evade punishment, and the meetings are always proposed. Is anyone who will be responsible for this? The Higher Qualification Commission of Ukraine is responsible, and the Supreme Council of Justice. These two bodies, they are responsible, and political responsibility for the judicial reform is vested in the MPs and the presidential administration. Mr. Filatov directly from the presidential administration. Whether they could have made the court ideal, it is impossible, but the courts could have been made more efficient. And there were many other reasons why these cases were so much procrastinated. Arsen Avakov protects by many ways those policemen who are now working in the internal affairs system. I think this is a list of responsible persons. So let us close at this note our briefing.